Welcome to video 6 of this 10-part series on perma-creativity, exploring the interplay between the permaculture principles and creative flow. Today, we're talking about collaborate, use and value diversity. Without diverse input, expect expected output. Collaboration introduces a proliferation of perspectives, ideas, as well as strengthening the larger ecosystem and the interconnecting communities that make up that ecosystem. All these wonderful things to which we as humans belong. In permaculture, the principle, along with principle 8, which is integrate rather than segregate, ensures that your designed ecosystem will have everything it needs to thrive without much intervention on your part. Wild natural environments don't need human help. They thrive all on their own. That's because they have a diverse array of plant and animal life that creates a self-supporting ecosystem in which each element has an essential role to play. If you remove any single element, the entire system is thrown off balance. And that's what we're seeing today out in the world. A lot of ecosystems are breaking down because we thought, hey, this element doesn't seem that important, and the whole thing breaks down. Conversely, a monoculture of just one crop cannot thrive on its own. Without companion flora and fauna to enrich the soil, ward off pests, and attract pollinators, we humans end up doing all the work of an entire ecosystem, all on our own. So no wonder we think farming's really hard, right? No wonder we're so reliant on technology to help us do what should be the easiest, most natural thing in the world, which is just to grow and harvest food for ourselves. Likewise, when we attempt to create in isolation, we're trying to do the work of an entire ecosystem on our own. And then we wonder why we're so exhausted and overwhelmed and overworked and burned out, right? When we collaborate with a diverse group of people, each bringing their unique set of authentic gifts, life experiences, and specialized skills, we can focus on doing what only we can do. Do only what you can do. This not only makes the creative process way more easeful and enjoyable, but it yields a much better quality result. Anyone who's ever tried to save money, quote, quote, by building their own website, remodeling their own house, doing their own bookkeeping, etc., they can attest. Unless we just happen to be really great at that activity and really love that activity, it just happens to be a gift of yours and gives you energy, the resulting hassle and hot mess will not be worth the money you saved. It's going to end up costing you a lot more in the end than it would have to just hire someone who has those skills and those gifts in the first place. Somebody out there loves that thing that you can't stand. They live for that, okay? And if you aren't paying them to do it, then they aren't finding the value doing what they love to do. And that too is an injustice. So pay the people who are good at what they do. Help them do what they do best so that you can focus on doing what you do best. Now, as with all these principles, the internal mirrors the external. So you have to invite diversity within as well as without. And that means valuing the diversity of your own ideas and your own interests. Value your curiosity. Follow your curiosity down the rabbit hole and discover what you have to find down there. See where all of that leads. Seek out diverse input. Go places you've never been. Try things you have never tried. Switch up your regular routine and surprise yourself every once in a while. This is where play comes in. When we get playful, when we get curious, when we follow our wild hairs, that's where we find new inspiration and new amazing ideas, innovative ideas, things we've never thought of before. Encourage playful experimentation with creative constraints. what I call a creative constraint. This is when we decide, okay, I'm going to give myself a rule, probably an arbitrary rule, just to make things a little more fun and interesting. So for example, Paula Vogel, she's a playwright, and she has this thing which she calls her play bake-offs. What she does is she invites a bunch of her playwright friends to hang out for a weekend, and they write a play in 48 hours. And she gives them ingredients that they have to use or cannot use during that 48-hour writing period. So for example, it might have to take place during a holiday, and there's a character who has a big secret. Something like that. So this is a creative constraint. If you tell a child, for example, hey, tell me a story, they kind of stare at you like, what? Tell you what? But if you say, tell me a story about a dog, they've got 5 stories about a dog that they are now happy to tell you. Because when you give them constraints, it actually frees them up, ironically, to be more creative, to experiment within the bounds of that container, that creative container that you've created with your creative constraints. So make a mess on purpose. This is probably the most important part of this. Just enjoy trying new things and being messy. Don't worry about the outcome. That comes later. Just have a great time making a big old mess, because once you have a mess, then you can make something out of that. Invite your collaborators to play along. Enjoy the wild adventure of the messy creative process in good company. It's more fun, it's more effective, and it's more than just sustainable. It's regenerative. Thanks for joining me for this video. Make sure you show up next week because we're going to be talking about iterate. This is the engine of the entire creative cycle. This is what keeps it all moving forward. And the permaculture principle that goes with that is apply self-regulation and accept feedback. I'll see you next week.